So today we're going to go over Make2D and CurveBoolean in Rhino. These are some drawings I just finished with a group for studio. This was a lot of 3D modeling at Make2D and CurveBoolean. And then these are some drawings that I did in Lark 502 last year. Again, a lot of Make2D. Okay, so we're going to start just by jumping into Rhino. This should be pretty quick. We're just going to go over how to layer or organize when it comes to Make2D and building 3D models, and then Make2D, and then we'll use my favorite tool, which is CurveBoolean, to help with the line weights for your axos. So this is one of the files that I worked on for that drawing that I just showed you. As you can see, I've labeled the file. This was from September 30th with my initials and the title of the file, so that whoever was in my group knew which file I had most recently worked on. As you can see, we have multiple layers here. This was for our timeline. Some Make2D layers. There's a line work layer, a 3D layer, an images layer, a text layer, and an axo line work layer, which has thick, medium, and thin, which I will go through in a second. So I've just copied over just like 3 of these houses onto another file so that it's a little bit lighter to work with. I'm not an expert in modeling houses by any means, but I've just separated the model pieces into structure, substructure, and then railings and windows and details. I didn't go into much more detail than that, and I knew that at that scale you wouldn't be able to see much more than that. Organizing your layers like this is going to be really helpful when you get into Illustrator, so that you can easily select, okay, the structure will have a certain thickness, or the railings will be super light. You can do it that way, but what we found to work the best was we knew that we wanted to have a maximum of 3 different line weights just to keep everything really clean and easy, because we knew we had a lot of Make2D to do. But you can use like up to like 6 line weights, let's say, and separate things out that way. So I'm going to keep going with 3 just for now. So what I would actually do is just copy over this stuff onto another part of your file, and then I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this structures for Make2D. Okay, and in that layer, I'm going to make a sublayer for thick. Since this is like going really slowly, I'm just going to hide these. See if that helps at all. And then I'm going to make a thin layer as well. I'm actually going to make an extra thin layer as well, because I'm going to use the thick layer for my CurveBoolean for the outlines of everything in Axo. So now that we have our layers, I'm going to move these items onto those layers. So I'm going to put this structure layer onto the medium layer, because I'm going to leave thick for Make2D CurveBoolean. So I'm going to change object layer. Okay, substructure, I'm going to put on the thin layer, and railings and windows and doors will go on the extra thin layer. Okay, now that that's done, we can go ahead with Make2D. So on Mac, you're going to right click on your viewport to get to the views for the Axo. For the PC, you're just going to click the drop down at the top there. So we're going to go to Set View and go to Isometric and click one of the views that you'd like. So I think we were working in Southeast Axo, so that works for me. And you're just going to simply type Make2D, and it's going to ask to select objects to draw, so let's select those and press enter. So it's going to bring up this, this box here. I like to keep these settings the same as how I have them now. You just want to make sure that Maintain Source Layers is on. You can play around with hidden lines, but that's pretty much the only thing. I wouldn't recommend any of the other ones. You could group the output, but you're probably going to end up ungrouping it anyways. So once that's ready, you can just press apply, and it's going to take, actually that was pretty fast, but sometimes it can take a couple minutes at least. So you might be wondering where it is. It's actually going to be in your top view, but as you can see, there's a new layer that it's made, which is called Make2D, and then it's all these sub layers, and then we have our layers that we made. So let's go to the top view, and it's going to make your 2D close to the origin here. So as you can see, my modeling skills for houses aren't great. There's some kind of weird things happening here. So that's when you kind of want to go ahead and clean up your Make2D. That can take kind of a long time. there's just always some like discrepancies that don't quite work out the way that you had intended it to. But this one's not too bad. I probably would just go trim out some stuff. Some things sometimes get lost, like this cap on this railing got lost, so I'm just going to go back into these layers and draw them in with the line tools, or trim out some stuff as need be. So that worked out pretty well. I just changed the colors quickly just because the black was a little bit hard to see the difference. Not that this is any better, but it's better for me. But we didn't get the thick line, the thick layer when we made 2D because there was nothing on that layer yet. So let's just remake a new layer called thick. So after we've made our thick layer, we are going to use that layer to make our CurveBoolean line, which will be a line that basically goes along the edge of all your geometry, which is really important for Axos because the edge line is always going to be the thickest, and you don't want to have to go in and trace this line just to do that. There's a really easy way to do it. So once we've put ourselves on the thick line, all we need to do is make a temporary box around our objects. Oops. Okay, and then we're going to type CurveBoolean, and we're going to just select everything we want. Press enter, and basically it's asking to click inside regions to keep. You don't really need to change any of these, they should just look like that. And I'm just going to click kind of off to the side here because I want everything that's touching the inside to have a line. So just click and that works perfectly, but also you basically want anything that touches air to have a thick line. So I'm just gonna click in there as well. And I could click in there too. But that seems like good to me. That seems like enough. So once you're done with that, you just press enter and we can delete that extra line. And then if we turn off our other layers, we just have a outline of our building. So that can be really useful if you have a bunch of geometry and you just want the kind of like center of all the lines and you don't want to have to go retrace it all. You can use the CurveBoolean. It's a really handy tool. So I'm going to turn these layers back on and then we will export this drawing to scale. Okay, so I am just going to move these back to the origin just so that it's easier on my Illustrator file. Illustrator always has a hard time if your objects are too far from the origin. I'm just going to export selected by going to File, Export Selected, but put it at an Illustrator file. Okay, and I'm going to be using the scale for this 1 to 1000, so it's going to be 1 meters equals 1 millimeter. I have a chart on the Miro board helping you guys just do this quick little conversion here. I have the sticky note at my desk at all times, but 1 to 1000 scale, so 1 meter to 1 millimeter, so you can go ahead and press export. Okay, so that was actually really small because I realized I was using 1 to 1000 for those huge block building layouts, but this is just one building, so 1 to 1000 is a little small, so I'm just gonna like pretend that I exported it to a larger scale just for the sake of this. And as you can see, our layers come in exactly as they were in Rhino, but except there's like all the overarching layers, so I'm just gonna go in and rename these. I'm gonna go to thick and make that like 1 medium, we'll do 0.7 perhaps. Thin can be 0.25 and extra thin can be like 0.1. Okay, and I might actually make the thicker one just like 1.5 or 2. But as you can see, that is a really, really quick way to easily line weight your drawings. Pretty much just makes it a guessing game and testing around these strokes and seeing what works best, but it's a lot easier than navigating through a ton of layers.